beginning to look a lot like last year. Every game I watch.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise post-game show here on a Wednesday night. It's kind of March Madness Eve tonight. First round kicks off tomorrow. I'm super excited for that. But tonight, before we start enjoying college basketball, Eric, we got to enjoy NBA basketball. Well, we got to enjoy it for a quarter if you're a Chris Murray fan and loved him hitting 3 threes in the first quarter. It was basically just downhill from there. The Blazers did pull it back within 15, credit to them. 13 final score, 116-103. But they ended up down 26 points there in the third quarter. Brutal second half, brutal third quarter, and just kind of a brutal game in general.
If you bet on this game for the Clippers, you were sweating at the end there.
Yeah, it was like the Clippers started point shaving, missing wide open layups. You can't even hit an open shot. That was strange, Eric. But
it was the spread was 12.5 for this.
yeah, wild. Clippers still pull through if you bet the spread and bet on the Clippers, because the Clippers seem to own the Blazers. I don't know what it is, this team the past couple of years. I mean, they're a good team, but the Blazers can't even get a close game with them, let alone beat them. Even early in the year. Opening night. This was kind of shades of opening night where the Clippers just destroyed the Blazers in the second half. We brought it closer than opening night, but if you remember opening night, Eric, we were down 30, and we got it to 19. It was actually very similar to opening night. Some different players playing, obviously. Harden plays. Harden has a decent game today for the Clippers. I mean, they just got a lot of dudes over there. They might be the favorite in the West for a reason. But we're going to talk about the Blazers side of things. We're going to talk about Chris Murray's first quarter. We're going to talk about Scoot And we're going to talk about the defense, because the defense is something else right now, man. I mean, there's problems on the defensive end that we're definitely going to have to touch upon. Eric?
Well,
go ahead.
I do want to say something about the defense right off the bat.
Okay, off the bat. Here we go, right into it. All right, what you got?
Our best defender tonight. Do you know who it was, Tori?
I don't know who you're going to say. The whole defense looked awful to me.
No, our best defender tonight was James Harden.
Yeah.
What the heck was he doing?
The best contest of the night. You're right.
Like, they're like clowning us so much that he goes and guards. If you did not see this, so Harden drives, he kicks out to a wide open Kawhi Leonard, and he closes out and puts a hand up like in his face, like he's guarding it.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? Did he do that on purpose, or did he forget what team he played for a second, or what?
So
like, yeah, you got to go see it if you didn't see it.
I've wondered at times if opponents think our defense is comical, right? Especially in the past couple years when we're like bottom 3 in the league. But there's just stretches where like we completely fall apart at the seams defensively. And it's just every little thing that we can mess up defensively, we mess up. Like, that specific play, Banton just lets his guy cut right behind him for no reason. So Murray goes with him, and then Banton just kind of like half-heartedly like steps towards the ball. And then half-heartedly closes out, and that's why James Harden's closeout on that play was better than Delano Banton's. Funny play. But it was like, man, our defense was so bad that third quarter that even James Harden felt bad for us. Even he tried to help us out, and he forced a miss. So, like...
And Kawhi was pissed.
Was he? I didn't even...
Yeah. Well, like, I was thinking, like, maybe... You know how, like, some shooters, I think you're this way, too. I know I'm this way. Yeah. I hate being left wide open. Like, I'd rather have a guy running at me. So, like... maybe he was thinking like Kawhi needs someone running at him to like shoot better or something, but then Kawhi got mad at him afterwards. So I was like, what the heck?
Well, yeah, it probably throws you for a loop when you see the opposite right, coming at you. That's funny, man. That's funny. Yeah, defense was brutal. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about just execution and discipline stuff, Eric. I mean, basically the theme of this post game in that regard is going to be, I just don't think the defense is getting better with some young guys that it should be. So we could talk about, individual players in that regard, but I think it's a bigger issue than just any one individual player, unfortunately. Shout out to Michael Kroll, $10 donation, says, hey, congrats on 10K. It's been great watching you guys the past 3.5 years. Thank you, Michael, for the $10 dono. Appreciate you, bro. And yeah, if you aren't aware, we finally hit 10,000 subs. So happy to be past that benchmark, and just a cool number to hit. Been chasing it for a while, and we've gained more subs in the past week than we've gained in like 2.5 months. The March Madness stuff helps. The bracket picks video helps. So that's always fun to do every year. But yeah, we're finally past 10,000 subs. So now I don't have to worry about subs ever again until we're maybe close to, I don't know. When's the next milestone? 15K, 20K? I don't know. But we're just going to keep doing our thing. Most of the time, I don't really care too much about numbers, but 10,000 subs is a cool number to hit, man. It's like a, big old round number, 5 digits. Pretty awesome. And every time we hit milestones, I just kind of reflect back over the work that went into building this platform, because there's a lot of work that went into it. So grateful for all of you that have been a part of it, especially recently during the downtimes. Especially those of you who, have been there from the start as well. And those of you who are new, thank you for joining our community. We greatly appreciate all the support. So just wanted to give you guys my gratitude that I have for you. So
yeah, thanks for the donation, Michael. And then thank you to all 10,000 of you that have subbed to the channel. Really, really appreciate it.
Yep. I will do some sort of giveaway. I don't know what yet, but I've had like 2 months to plan it because we've been closed for a couple months, but I have not planned it yet, but I do got a couple ideas. So we'll definitely do a 10K giveaway. I haven't done a giveaway. I don't know if I've ever done a giveaway for this channel before, but we will have something for you guys, so stay tuned. And one final thing before we get into the stream, if you want to join last minute, if you want to join our $20 bracket pool, we have a just message me, just email me, blazersupprise@gmail.com, or message me on Twitter, or message me on Discord if you want to join our $20 bracket pool. The deadline is 12 hours from now, so it's very last minute, but let me know if you want to join. Shout out to Jackson, our mod and member for 37 months. Got that 3-year member badge. Thank you, Jackson. He says, congrats, guys. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Thanks for being a member and a mod. All right, Eric.
One, I love the AI image tonight.
Yeah, people were asking, what is that Clippers logo? I don't know. It's AI. I said Clippers players shooting off a ship, a Clipper ship.
What?
So it's a really, I think it's pretty sick. I'm having fun with these AI pictures.
Two, I just did my bracket in the minutes before we came on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and started getting a little crazy. Kind of had to hone it in a little bit.
yeah, there's a couple teams Eric said like, oh, that's interesting. But I mean, this year is just crazy picking brackets. And last year we had what, a 4, 2 5s, and a 9 in the final four.
Mm-hmm.
So the tournament's always interesting because you don't know if you're going to get 2 1s and 2 2s, or the highest seed being a 4 in the final four. Like, anything can happen. Storylines are fun. The first round starts tomorrow, 16 games tomorrow, so just looking forward to watching some good basketball. Cody Williams played tonight. Once we get to Tankathon, I have to...
Did he?
Yeah, we're going to have that conversation when we get to Tankathon, when we start talking prospects, because I know he's coming back off of injury, but he looks invisible. You wouldn't know he's playing if you weren't really watching. Coming off the bench, I mean, did he even score a point, Eric?
I don't
know if he scored a point.
I didn't see his point line, but he's been pretty bad last 5 games.
Yeah, so that's obviously a top prospect that could be in a Blazer uniform. I don't know if we should discount him for it, but we'll have that conversation when we get to prospects. Yeah, he did not score tonight. Came off the bench, was 0 for 4 in 11 minutes. So either they're not playing him because they don't trust him right now, or they're not playing him because he's still banged up and just isn't fully healthy. I would lean towards the latter because he looked really good earlier in the season. But, yeah. You got him, he's injured. You got other prospects injured. It's going to be fun to talk about prospects. We'll spend a lot of time on that tonight once we get there with March Madness being tomorrow. Shout out to Hyperprime member for 28 months. Says Harden for Defensive Player of the Year. Phenomenal defense. Yeah, does Harden get counted with a... you know how they track, like, if you can test threes and force a miss?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does he get that added to his stats, even though it was his own team? He did contest a 3, and he did force a miss.
And the closest defender within, 0 to 2 feet, 2 to 6 feet, does that go down as a closely defended?
Was Kawhi wide open or not? Does Harden count as a defender in that situation? I'm sure the people that developed all those stats didn't take into account, what if your own teammate plays defense on you? That's the hardest I've ever seen Harden defend, too. Crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tristan Klein, member for 3 months, says GCU Elite 8 watch. GCU is a fun sleeper team. I'm not going to say how far I have them going, but they're a fun sleeper team. Ty and Grant Foster looks like a second-round pick to me. Could be an intriguing guy. Cool story. Battled back from cancer. I believe he had cancer, right? And he and Miles Rice are the 2 guys that had cancer, correct? So, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me look
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember all the storylines. Yeah, he collapsed. Okay, he didn't have cancer. He collapsed and had to miss a year, or basically 2 years, when he went to DePaul, then transferred to GCU, and has been balling this year. So, fun storylines like that. Just good comeback stories. Good Cinderella stories are always fun. That's why we love sports, right? Rooting for an underdog is always enjoyable. And fun storylines always make things more interesting. Unfortunately for this Blazer team, though, the storylines don't get fun until the offseason. The only fun left to be had is young players playing well And on a night-to-night basis, we do tend to get like one player that looks pretty good, one young player that has a good performance. Tonight it was Chris Murray. Unfortunately, as of late, it has not been Scoot Henderson. He's been struggling. But at least we got a performance we can talk about. Let's start off with Chris Murray. Before we get to that, shout out Oscar, a member for 25 months. Thanks for the reminder for the bracket. Tori, you're welcome. Thank you for being a channel member. Chris Murray, Eric, finally makes some threes. Finally has a good shooting night from three. He goes... Let me pull up the stats here. If my phone is quick. There we go. Chris Murray, 7 for 11 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. He hit all 3 of those threes in the first quarter. Started 3 for 4 from 3, 0 for 2 the rest of the game. But, 3 threes. We've been talking about his shooting. He needs to shoot the ball well. And 3 for 6 is hopefully a good start to that. What'd you think of him tonight, Eric?
Well, Danny Moran was very focused on it in the post-game press conference, asking 2 questions right off the bat for Chauncey about Chris's threes. But, yeah, I mean...
his name is He Who Must Not Be Named.
Yeah.
But you named him.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I wanted to give him credit for those awesome questions he had.
Okay. He's catching strays off the bat. All right. So, Chris, what do you think of him, Eric? Because we value what you think.
Yeah, I mean, we know he needs to hit the threes, and that's what one of the questions was how much does Chris's career arc change if he hits threes or whatever? And obviously that's like, we all know the answer to that question. Like, his
career arc is higher.
It's pretty big if he becomes a 3-point shooter like his brother.
I mean, yeah, I'll say this: if he doesn't hit threes, he doesn't really have much of an arc at all.
Yeah,
he needs to hit threes. If he does hit threes, he can be a serviceable role player. The phrasing of that doesn't really make sense. It's like, if he can hit threes, he can be a solid role player. If he doesn't make threes, he's not going to be in the rotation on a winning team. It's that simple. That simple.
And, it was mentioned that he shoots 40% from the corner threes, which is pretty normal for most shooters to shoot better from the corners than up top or at the break. But I mean, 40% from the corners on wide open threes isn't great still. I mean, you like to see it above 40%.
Really that's 40% from there?
I mean, that's what the question or the reporter said.
Because he shoots a ton of corner threes, and he's shooting 26% from 3. Interesting.
Said it was like 19% all other areas outside the corner or something. So probably sounds about right.
I mean, according to Basketball Reference, he's shooting 31% from corner threes, but I'm sure there's different things that quantify corner threes out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure NBA.com. I'll try and find NBA.com stat on that, but I don't really believe that number.
That was the talk of they talked about it during the broadcast too. Yeah.
That was the talking point for the...
Because He Who Should Not Be Named went to Calabro at halftime just to let him know that Chris Murray's a 40% corner shooter. So, yeah, I don't know.
What are we doing, man? I mean, what are we doing?
But I thought Chris had a pretty good game. He had one cut that I loved. Ayton got kind of stuck. Everyone thought he was going to shoot, and Chris, the defense kind of froze, and he made a great cut. Ayton had a nice dump off to him, and then the next play, Chris gets the ball, gets kind of stuck, and Ayton did a good job of sealing inside, and Chris passed to him. So they had a nice 2-man game for 2 plays at least. And those are the kind of things you like to see outside. Obviously, the three threes was nice to see him hit some of those.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, like, he needs to have more games like this. He needs to have more games where he shoots the ball like this. It's always tough when a guy, like, struggles from three and then has a game where he shoots the ball well. It's always tough for me to talk about it because I'm not going to put any stock in him having one good shooting night when he's been shooting very poorly all year. Okay? Basically, it's as simple as this. He has to shoot like this more. That's it. That's it. If he shoots like this the rest of the season where he's, let's just say hypothetically it's 40% of his threes the last 13, 14 games of the season, then maybe it changes my outlook on him a little bit heading into the offseason because that's the growth that we need to see. But, I mean, in the past there's been a number of guys, Eric, who kind of struggle with their three and then they have like one hot shooting game and it's hard not to overreact to that. Like, oh, look how good he looked tonight, He made threes. Well, he's going to look good if he makes threes because he does a bunch of other things okay. Defensively, you could even make a case that he's been above average as a rookie, Like, he's a smart defender. I don't think he's physically gifted as a defender, but I think he makes up for that in that he's a smart defender. Okay? Keegan Murray is a good defender. So, as far as Chris goes, 3-and-D archetype if he's making threes, and then, like, connective, like, fill in the gaps, he has not impressed me as somebody putting the ball on the floor. But for a 3-and-D guy, he can use his body a little bit when he puts the ball on the floor. But at the end of the I can't talk. At the end of the day, he has to play off guys. He's not going to be somebody you put the ball in his hands. If he's going to be a connective piece, he has to knock down threes. He has to space the floor. It's that simple. So that's why it all comes back to that.
When you're not like super quick off the dribble, it helps if you have people running at your 3-point shot quicker because then you can pump fake or go by them. So
that takes moving the ball maybe a little better than we normally do. And
well, no, it just takes him hitting some threes.
Oh,
like
for
right
sure,
now,
for sure.
Right now, they don't respect it enough to fly out at him. If they do, it's a mistake. So yeah, just got to be more consistent with it.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot with like Tamani, with Jabari, even with a lot of these guys, right? You want to be able to get into, you want to be able to attack closeouts. The only way you're going to be able to attack closeout is if there's a closeout in the first place. If the defender isn't closing out on you hard, there's nothing to attack, right? Like he's giving you a gap, that's when you have to shoot. Shoot well enough, then they close out harder. But in order to create that closeout in the first place, you need a kick-out pass or a swing pass. You need to get the defense rotating a little bit. And that is something that this team has struggled with for basically every season under Chauncey. Even this year, I think they've struggled with it. They've struggled getting defenses caught in rotations. And they've struggled making the kick-out pass consistently. A lot of that is Jeremy Grant. Some of that now is Delano Banton, right? But you got to be able to create opportunities to attack closeouts in the first place, and then you got to be able to make shots to get those guys closing out hard. And that's when you can get the defense caught in rotation because they're going to, you make the right kick-out pass, the defender closes out hard on a shooter, hopefully that's Chris Murray, and then he's able to attack, and you get the defense caught scrambling. And that's something the Blazers did to start last season. That was part of their offensive success, and Chauncey talked about it a lot, although I thought maybe at times they were a little bit too unselfish in terms of not taking opportunities to like get all the way to the rim and making a kick-out pass maybe too much. This year it's been a bit of the opposite with some guys on this team that aren't willing or as willing as they should be to make that kick-out pass. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is evaluation time to see who's improving from three. And the main guy is Tamani. He's improved lately. Jabari Walker, he was 2 for 2 from 3 today, so he also had a good shooting night. Okay, but same thing with Chris, same thing with Jabari. Both these guys need to showcase something from behind the line over the rest of the season where it's not just a hot shooting night and then he's back to 0-2 next game and then 1 for 4 the game after and then 1 for 5 the game after, right? Because that's what he's been all season. So I think he's here to stay, so I guess it doesn't truly matter how well he shoots the rest of this year as long as he picks it up next season. But it'd make me feel a lot better about him going into the offseason if he has a good stretch here the final month of the season.
At the same time, though, we saw 40-plus games of Thibault shooting well from 3, and then he now his percentage looks just the same as it always has in his career.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if you can really tell anything just based off the last few games here, but I mean, it's better to have him shoot well, obviously, than to go back to shooting poorly after this game.
Yeah, Trevin says NBA.com has Chris Murray shooting 36% from the corners. So, don't know where the 40% came from, Eric.
I don't know either.
Amazing. So,
But by the way, the tags still say Bulls and Blazers versus Bulls.
oh, I'll change that. I don't know if these tags even matter that much, but I see other real YouTubers do it, so I'm gonna do it. There we go. Clippers.
But you mentioned the rotation or rotating the ball. So it's pretty bad when there isn't a lot of rotating of the ball on offense, and our rotations on defense are really bad as well. It's just a bad combination, I think, to try and win games.
Yeah, like, let's just talk about the defense. Let's just get that out of the way, because that's what I want to talk about, Eric. Like, shout out to Chris Murray, good game. Defensively, this team, I don't think is getting better. And I think that's a problem. I think individually some guys are fine in terms of like their impact, like they're not a major negative, which unfortunately is the bar. Like it's a pretty low bar defensively for this team. But the discipline, Eric, defensively is what's really been a problem for me. This team consistently executes things wrong defensively. And it's little things, such as how you shade the ball handler when a screen's coming. It's stuff like the guy that's getting screened on a pick and roll, icing the screen, but the big is playing in the middle when the screen's towards the sideline. Icing the screen is when you basically force the ball handler to the sideline, and then the big is there to cut him off down the sideline. He's supposed to be on the sideline, but the big will be shifted over towards the middle of the floor, which is wrong, right? There's stuff like guys just having their head staring at the ball. They're just ball watching, and their offensive player cuts behind them. So somebody else has to pick them up, so then somebody's wide open in the corner. There is a lot of problems with this team and with multiple players on this team where they just execute things completely wrong. And I feel like it's just not being coached well enough. And there's people out there that defend everything that Chauncey does with the roster. They're young.
What is he supposed to do?
What is he supposed to do? But as I've said all season long, yes, they're young. They should be getting better, especially executional stuff defensively. There shouldn't be as many mistakes now in March as there was in November, especially with the young guys who had a lot of room for improvement, given that they were starting off in a pretty low place because they're young, because they're rookies or second-year players, etc. But even some of the younger guys, like Tamani Kamara in preseason, executed little things defensively extremely well. And he was a rookie, right? So it's not like all these guys, just because they're young, they can't execute things defensively. I think physically, we're not at much of a deficit. Maybe with our starting backcourt, given that you're starting at the 2, right? But there's just a lot of things that happen where it's like mistakes that aren't even necessarily consistent with each other. It's just like one possession, somebody will play it right, and then one possession, the same action, they'll be in a completely different spot and play it completely wrong. And I think it goes all the way down to a screenshot that you shared in our group chat of like Scoot just shading a guy extremely weirdly. The Harden closeout was Banton just, I don't know what the hell Banton was doing, just daydreaming defensively. There is way too many executional mistakes, and if you watch a channel called Awful Coaching, he used to be called something else. He's the guy that rants about coaching, Eric. Yeah. I hope he does a video on this game. I've been watching every Blazer video that dude posts, and it's actually quite eye-opening as to how many executional mistakes this team makes that maybe you don't catch in live action because it's hard to catch in live action unless you go back and watch the film, which this guy does, or you're specifically paying attention to the specific player that ends up making the mistake. Right? If you just watch a game normally, you're going to be watching the ball. You're not going to notice all 5 defenders. There's 10 players on the court, right? So it's hard to know what every single guy is doing, especially defensively, when you're paying attention to who has the ball, are shots going in, right? Like you're going to watch offense. And that's the biggest thing for me is just the executional mistakes I don't think are getting better, and there's way too many of them. And it's a problem. And I don't have faith in Chauncey to clean it up because I feel like he's not doing a good enough job of cleaning it up. And these were all problems with players with more experience the past couple of years. How much did we talk about Rocco under Chauncey being completely out of position defensively in year 1? And people say, oh, it's Chauncey's first year. Give him some time. Okay. I'm fine with that. And even I was okay with that at the time, right? It's his first year. He's still figuring out how to be a head coach. Give him 20 games to figure it out. Give him 50 games. Give him a whole year. Give him 2 years, right? Like, okay, I'll give Chauncey some time year 1, especially when it's Robert Covington, who I think would know better, but he starts getting steal hungry and block happy. And we had many post-game shows a couple years ago in Chauncey's first year as coach where Robert Covington is 1 pass away in playing 15 feet off his guy and giving up wide open threes for no reason. For no reason. But people just gloss over everything defensively in that season with, well, you're starting Norman Powell at the 3. You're starting 3 guards. Okay, yes, that's not optimal, but also there was other mistakes that aren't due to that, right? So that was a conversation a couple of years ago with post-game shows in Chauncey's first year. We're now in year 3 with Chauncey, and you can no longer say give them more time. Now what you can say is, well, they're young. Okay, sure, fine. But we were supposed to give them time so we could figure out how to clean this stuff up as coach. And this season, they've been, better than last year? And yes, they got some guys playing now that are developmental guys like Repair, etc. But I'm not holding Chauncey accountable for mistakes Repair makes when he's barely played. I'm going to hold Chauncey accountable for mistakes that players who have been playing under him all season long are still making and is not getting cleaned up. And there's just way too many positional and executional mistakes, and the way we cover ball screens, it's like never consistent with the guy getting screened and the guy guarding the screener. A lot of times they're on completely different pages, and I mean, even the zone will bust out sometimes and will commit 2 to the ball out of nowhere. Way too many executional mistakes on defense, and I think a lot of responsibility has to fall on Chauncey Billup's shoulders.
Yeah, what's frustrating to me when I watch the defense is they'll do one thing right, and then it's like they celebrate that they did that thing, and then completely break down. And then, for example, there was a play where Harden got the ball. They were kind of in a zone, but it was like a matchup zone. So you're supposed to, like, once you guard someone, you're supposed to stick with them. And so Scoot comes out and takes Harden. Harden passes just like a few feet away. And Scoot just turns around and walks down into the paint for no reason. There was no one driving or anything. And they just throw it right back to Harden and he hits a 3. And it's like, I'm just thinking, like, okay, what were you doing? Like, what were you even thinking on that play? Like, were you thinking that, like, another defender was going to go get him and you were trying to find your guy even though you're in a zone, or what? Like, I don't know, man. It's, like, I see way too much of that. Just people in the wrong positions, people not even guarding their guy, people running back to a spot on the floor instead of picking up offensive players on the fly on, like, transition defense. And if you make like 2 or 3 passes against the Blazers, or heaven forbid, pump fake, like you completely throw off our whole defense, and that's not a good sign for coaching. I completely agree with you there. And I look at a team like the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been more injured than us this year, have played just as many young players, and quite frankly, less heralded young players. And And do you know where they rank defensively right now this season?
The Blazers?
The Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh, Memphis. 11th, right?
Yeah, they're 11th right now. Like, so on the fringe of being a top 10 defense with everything that's happened for them this year.
Well, that's because Taylor Jenkins knows how to coach defense. You know, he ain't sitting here saying, "Look at the players I got. What can I do? There's nothing I can do."
And obviously, Jaren Jackson's a great defender, but I mean, he's been in and out of the lineup. That's not all because of him.
They've been able to win some games. They have more wins than us. They should not have more wins than us. They have been more injured than we've been. Like, yeah. They've missed John Morant all season, Desmond Bane for the majority of the season. Like, they have no front court depth. They're out here starting, like, Trey Jemison in games, bro. No, like, if any team has excuses for struggling defensively, it's them. But they don't make excuses, and that's the problem. That's the problem with people that just chalk everything up to, oh, look who's playing. Yes, the standard for young guys who need to learn a lot of things defensively is obviously going to be lower compared to a team trying to contend with a bunch of veterans that already know how to play defense. Obviously, that context is a big part of the conversation. But if anything, players that struggle defensively and have a lot to learn should improve more than anyone else. And that's what it all falls back to.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought this up very early this season that a lot of the early season struggles, good coach teams or well-coached teams, by like January-ish, you start to see them get better at it. And the Blazers under Chauncey all 3 years have actually gotten worse as the season goes on defense. And I don't know like how you can justify that, because it's not like I know we've had injuries, but it's not like we have a significantly different roster than we started the year with or anything, right? So they should be more cohesive. We should know a lot more like what Chauncey expects of you, if you're being held accountable and getting called out for, or not even called out, but like if you're going over film correctly and stuff, by now you should be sick of being told to like not do this on defense. And man, I don't mean to pick on Scoot, but there was like 4 or 5 plays in a row where he just goes down into the paint and stands there, and like I swear he could have gotten a 3-second defensive goal like a bunch of plays in a row, and I have no idea who he's guarding or what he's guarding or what his intentions are, because it's not like he's helping on a drive or anything, because they're just passing the ball around the perimeter on all these possessions. They don't have, they lobbed it up to Zubac a few times, but it's not like they run their offense through him in the post and you have to go in the paint to help out there. So like I have no idea what was going on there. And I watched that defense and just watch him in particular just run around and seemingly have no, I don't know, like the defense just doesn't have any kind of fluidity to it. And it's frustrating, man.
Yeah, I think Scoot on the ball is passable for a rookie 6'3" point guard. Yeah. When he can lock in on somebody with the ball in front of him, he's okay. Mm-hmm. Like low standard there for a 6'3" rookie. Can't emphasize that enough, but he's much better when he can just focus in on the ball in front of him than when he's defending off the ball. His off-ball defense just sometimes it just doesn't make sense. In transition defense, we've talked about all year, where he will like not run back or run back at less than 100%, or like gamble for a steal he's never going to get in transition, leaving his team at a deficit once the ball gets past him. And that's the type of stuff that he needs proper coaching to work on that stuff. That's stuff you can focus on in film. That's stuff you focus on in practice, but you can also focus on it during games. And it's just, it has not improved, in my opinion, over the course of the entire season. And Scoot's improved on a lot of stuff over the course of the season. He's in a little bit of a rough patch now, but he was playing better before this rough patch, like, he's going to have some inconsistencies offensively. But defensively, this is stuff that you should be able to consistently improve and make fewer mistakes on, even as a rookie, and that's where I'm a little worried with it. So, but it's more than just Scoot. I mean, how many times, Eric, and I don't know if this falls on a player per se, but one of Harden's threes was, we're running drop coverage, but the guy guarding Harden goes under the screen.
Yeah.
And lets him walk into a three.
Mm-hmm.
You can go under the screen if you have a big up that's able to jam the screener a little bit, and if you have a big that can like actually step out on that three if he's close enough to the screener and bother it a little bit, giving you a little bit of time to go under. Because in today's NBA, if you go under, you'll get punished against the best players in the league, against guys like James Harden, right? So if you're going to go under screens, you need a little bit of help from the guy guarding the screener. Drop scheme means that guy is not helping in that action at all. That means he's standing 10 feet, 15 feet below it, right? Trying to force a mid-range shot, trying to take away the rim. That's what drop scheme is. But when you drop the big, the guy going through the screen, the guy guarding the ball handler, is supposed to go over the screen every time. Unless it's somebody that can't shoot. If you're guarding Scoot, like, okay, maybe you go under. But if you're guarding James freaking Harden, you go over. You go over. And there is a play, and this happens like all the time. It happened against Boston. You remember when Jason Tatum walked into a three because Grant goes under and the big is just nowhere around?
Yeah.
You remember that three?
Mm-hmm. That
happens way too much in this game. Delano Banton. Sorry, let me mute the play. It was Delano Banton on the ball, and he's shading Harden to the right. Okay, the screen comes. It's Zubac, and Zubac sets it at a really good angle. But instead of lock and trailing Harden and forcing him to the big that's dropping, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go over and force the guard downhill towards the big where you have that second defender. Instead of doing that, he just does a terrible job getting through the screen, goes under. Ty starts to roll. The problem is when bigs start to roll and you're going under like that, you can kind of get caught on it, and they're not going to call that a moving screen all the time. It's just a wide open three for Harden. It was in the second quarter, 10:22 left. You can go on NBA.com. You can find what play I'm talking about. That's an executional mistake. But we do it so much that I don't know if I should blame the players or Chauncey.
Yeah.
Because Chauncey just stands there and puts his hands out to the ref after that three. Like, Ty started to roll, so we wanted a moving screen call. Like, I guess that should be called a moving screen. But still, even if the screen doesn't move, it's still a wide open three for Harden. He's not getting on Banton at all for going under that screen when we're running drop. And that's where it comes back to, is Chauncey okay with that? Because if so, that's a joke. And if he's not okay with that, why isn't he saying something to Banton? Because putting your hands up at the ref isn't going to change anything. And if Banton's going under, even if the screen's moving a little bit, you should be telling him, don't go under the freaking screen. Especially when it doesn't even matter if we're winning games or not. We're trying to develop players. So that's where I'm just lost. And that's where there's a disconnect for me with Chauncey and with the executional problems of this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, one, I don't understand why we run so much drop still. I know our bigs are immobile. I mean, Aid's not really immobile, but we play him like he's an immobile defender, you know? But my thing is, okay, Clippers have Paul George, they got James Harden, Kawhi Leonard. All three can make stuff happen, especially if you're not hedging or showing on those screens. They can just go to work against that. And my thing is, how often does Zubac kill you in the short roll?
I don't know. I remember he killed us on opening night.
Yeah, but that's like, it's not necessarily in the short roll. It's more on like lobs or because when you play drop, he gets downhill and then the big has to either decide to stay with this guy or come out on the guard with a free lane, right?
Yeah.
And that's what kills us against the Clippers. But you know how we often have to give the ball to Ayton around the free throw line? I would, man, when you play a team like the Clippers, I would try to make Zubac make plays, you know? And I know he can a little bit, but I'd much rather have him prove that he can make plays out of the short roll catching the ball. So you just like basically bait him into having to give it up to him there, and then you recover and see how that goes. But instead, all we do is let the guy come free off the pick, and then we're stuck in a situation where it's 2-on-1, and it just happens way too much for it to be, like you said, like just people messing up, but not actual design in the schemes and stuff.
Yeah, and the Clippers play a ton of isolation basketball too. Like there's a lot of buckets where they just isolated us well.
Mm-hmm.
But man, like drop scheme, I'm getting a little tired of it, of how much we run it. There's just multiple buckets you can look at in this game that they get easy shots because basically just somebody comes flying off a screen or a handoff in the guard, locks and trails, which is what he's supposed to do. But Ayton is not a drop big man.
Yeah.
He's the thing, bro. Here's my problem. People hated Nurkic because he was immobile, right? And you can't have him play up at the level of a screen, which was untrue, but that's what people said. And, he's only a drop big. We get Ayton. Supposedly, part of the reason why he's an upgrade is because he's a more mobile big man. And we drop him constantly. And I don't think he does a terrible job, but he doesn't do a good job running drop. He drops too much. He's not good when he's on his heels. And he will jump at the ball handler a little too quickly. He's not like super solid in drop scheme. He's no Brook Lopez when Brook Lopez was having his good defensive years. He's no 2019 Yusuf Nurkic running drop. Yusuf Nurkic was a better drop defender. I think still Nurkic right now is a better drop defender. Part of the appeal with Ayton was supposed to be, but he can hedge a screen, he can get up and trap a screen, and we just don't do anything. We don't do it. If we're going to switch to something, we're going to switch to his zone, which is even more passive. Even more passive, Eric, than drop. That's the one thing that's more passive than drop is a zone, unless you're trapping out of it, trapping in the corners, extending the zone, trying to play passing lanes, whatever. But it's just super passive, and it's not what Chauncey came in trying to do in year one, and it's not what Chauncey said his philosophy was in the past couple years as coach. And he's talked about, like, he wants to be a team that teams don't like to play. Well, when you play passively constantly, teams will have a lot of fun playing against you. And we just run way too much drop. We run way too much zone. And it's fine. It's one thing if you have guys that play it so well and so solidly that you can get away with it because they'll execute it correctly all the time. But man, we're not solid. So I don't understand why, like, nobody's being challenged defensively, it feels like, with any sort of scheme. But we don't trap much. We don't hedge much. Drop is like the easiest pick and roll scheme to run. We still can't execute it right. So it's just a mess.
Yeah, and like his the people who stick up for Chauncey will say, well, look how much they switch up the defense, which is fine. It's just everything they switch to is pretty conservative. And occasionally, lately, they've ran a double team from like way far away, and it hasn't really gotten home much. But they still don't double that much off of screens. It just I don't understand.
They don't rotate well out of the double either. Like doubling off of screens is a little easier because you can spring it upon them quicker. But you're right. We only double just like randomly when the guy can see it coming and already has the ball in his hands. Yeah,
and also, I mean, I know Ayton isn't as mobile as Anthony Davis, but like you can't tell me that he couldn't be like 75% of what Anthony Davis did to us, like in the Pelican series, with his long arms. He can jump high. Like, you don't think that would be tough for a ball handler if you get trapped with like him and Banton or something, like with Banton or even Scoot has long arms, like that's going to be tough for a guard to navigate that. I think if you're trying to force turnovers, which we haven't even done a good job of doing that lately, that's been one of the reasons why our defense has fallen off as well, because I think earlier in the season it was kind of fake defense based on all those turnovers they were creating, but lately they haven't even gotten those. So it's been like all half court defense and transition defense, and those have not been good for us. So yeah, I don't understand, man. I don't get why we don't try more aggressive point of attack things, especially without a point of attack defender on the roster, really.
Yeah, and especially considering how bad we are getting through screens. Bro, Delano Banton does not get through screens well. He dies on a lot of screens.
I mean, to be fair, no one. He does.
Yeah, but like, I'm just rewatching basically every made field goal. And so many plays is just like him dying on a screen, just running into the guy, and like, he's like Jeremy Grant getting through some of these screens, man. I mean, it's bad. You can make it easier on that guy if you actually give him some help with the guy guarding the screener, and we just don't do it. Frustrating stuff. But even like point of attack, I haven't been too impressed with him. Like, I feel like people just assume he's a solid defender because he can move and is 6'9", the Jeremy Grant effect type of thing.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Doesn't mean he's a good defender just because he's 6'9", unfortunately. So,
I mean, that goes back to like Alan Crabb a few years ago when people said we'd be better off starting him at the 2 over CJ because he's a better defender, even though none of the defensive metrics or the eye test showed that at all. It was just because he was 6'5" versus 6'3" or something.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, they picked apart our drop coverage, man. I mean, I'm just tired of running it so much. Like, it's frustrating. So, executional mistakes coupled with a passive defensive scheme I don't think is good for trying to develop some of these young guys defensively. They're not learning anything by running drop scheme because basically you just stay home behind that and hope that the ball handler... The thing is, it's designed to give up open mid-range shots. A defensive scheme that is designed to give up open shots, I'm not a fan of. If you can contest those mid-range without giving up threes or layups, then it's good, right? But you gotta execute it properly. Here's the problem, though. Guys are so good at shooting threes, even 3-4 feet behind the line, they can just set the screen higher and still pull up. Instead of pulling up from mid-range, they're still behind the three-point line because you can just set the screen higher and you still have to go over because guys can pull from there. So then they're still pulling up from 3. So I'm just not a fan of that scheme. I'm not a fan of dominantly running drop scheme against the best teams in the league. Eric, they always pick it apart. The best offensive players always pick apart drop scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Dame always picked apart drop scheme. These Clippers players tonight picked apart drop scheme. James Harden picked apart drop scheme. The best players in the league love playing against drop scheme. Dame even said in the past that he loves playing against drop scheme. So, what's our defensive identity? The thing is, at the start of the year, is like, okay, we're going to force some turnovers. Somehow that's turned into all we're going to run is drop and zone, which is the opposite of being aggressive and trying to force turnovers. So I had a little bit of hope earlier in the season that we were forging some sort of defensive identity, and it's completely shifted to the opposite of that. Very frustrating.
Yeah, and it'd be different if we had a point of attack defender that was good at navigating screens or was just really good at recovering after getting blown up on a screen or something, but we don't even do that. Like, we die on the screen and are running drop, and then the people don't recover at all. And that's like the worst combination. But like, okay, so our defensive rating tonight probably didn't look too bad at the end of it, but that's because, so Tice hit a 3 with 5:28 left. I just looked it up for their 112th point.
Yeah.
And they're just like put in the bench and were goofing around the last 5 minutes and missed a lay-in, like you said. Just weren't running any kind of offense or anything, and it was just garbage time for 5 whole minutes. Otherwise, this game looks a lot worse than it was in terms of our defense.
Yep.
But that's why you look at adjusted, right? Adjusted defensive rating instead of...
Yeah, 100%. Adjusted defensive rating over normal defensive rating, I agree. I don't know. The defense is a joke. Is there anything else you wanna say on this?
No, I think we beat it home.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot, more time on post-game streams to discuss the defense. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm gonna do player reviews and do player film breakdowns. I'm already starting to save a bunch of clips for it, and I'm gonna have defensive footage talking about the good and the bad of each player's defense. Kind of like the scouting profiles for college players that Adam Spinello did, Boxing One, Draft Express used to do, Hoop Intellect, those types of videos. Planning on doing those for Blazer defenders and really getting a feel for like what exactly they struggled with and then being able to showcase it. So those videos after the season are gonna hit. I'm excited to make those. It's gonna be a lot of work, but excited to work on them. I already started working on them. Before we jump into anything else, we can talk about a few players in a little bit. But before we jump into anything else, Eric, on Monday we picked spreads for the first day of the first round of March Madness for Thursday. We also picked first 4 spreads. And I was saying during that segment, man, if I just, had picked spreads in the past for March Madness, I'd be a pretty wealthy man. Mm-hmm. And first 4 spreads, the two meaningful games that aren't 16 seeds, were Colorado State and Virginia. I took Colorado State as like a 1-point favorite or something. And then it was Colorado and Boise State, and I took Colorado as like a 1.5-point favorite. And both those picks came through for me on the spread. So 2-0, in my opinion, on spread lines with that first 4. So if you guys took advantage of the deal that BetUS is offering you, then you guys could have cashed in. But it's not too late because we're only 4 games into the NCAA tournament. And there are 4 games that people don't even really count like that because it's the first 4. It's not the first round. The first round starts tomorrow. If you want our bracket pool, by the way, email me, blazersurprise@gmail.com, or message me on Twitter or Discord. Twitter is @ToryJonesYT. But you can still get in on the action with BetUS with some of these spread lines for March Madness by signing up with the link in the description box below, as well as using the promo code JOIN125. So, we're going to take a look at spread lines for March Madness for Friday's slate of games. We already looked at it Thursday. You can go look at the last post-game show if you want to check those out. But quickly, 16 games, 16 spread lines to pick on. Spread lines that are available at BetUS. Once again, they'll offer you 3 125% bonuses with promo code JOIN125. That's $125 free dollars on a $100 deposit. That makes it $225. Minimum $100 deposit, max $2,500. They're also offering you 10% gambler's insurance if you're active every 6 months. So here we go, Eric. Let's sort these by time. Let's go to Friday. St. Mary's 5.5-point favorites over Grand Canyon. I like Grand Canyon. They got an NBA caliber wing in Tyron Grant Foster, who's a lot of fun to watch. I recommend paying attention to him during this game. Oh, no, this is the last game of the day. What? I sorted it backwards. We'll talk about him last. First game of the day, Northwestern, Florida Atlantic. Eric, everybody loves Florida Atlantic because they did last year. They're 2.5-point favorites as the 8th seed over 9th seed with Northwestern. Who are you taking there?
2.5 is close enough to just take who you think is going to win, in my opinion. And I know Florida Atlantic has been disappointing this year overall, but I like this matchup for them, so I'm going to take them over Northwestern.
Yeah, I like Northwestern. I feel like Florida Atlantic is the flashy team, but they struggled. They just lost to Temple. They have not been impressive over the course of February and March.
They're waiting for the tourney.
Yeah, they're waiting for the tourney. But last year, what's funny is they only won in the first round. It was an 8-9 game against Memphis. They only won by 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they barely won. If they lost that game, it would have been interesting to see how that who makes the Final Four out of that region.
Change the whole bracket,
Exactly. So, yeah, who knows? Because it was, Florida Atlantic versus Kansas State. Kansas State would have been fun in the Final Four. That was a fun team in March Madness last year. But I like Northwestern. They can shoot the ball. They got a star guard and Bowie. So I'm taking them. Colgate, Baylor. Baylor's 14-point favorites. I think Baylor blows them out. I always pick Colgate as an upset pick, Eric, and they always disappoint me. And I don't think they're as good as last year. So I'm
There's
taking
some bias
Baylor.
there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I also like Baylor in this one to cover as well.
And then we got San Diego State, UAB. San Diego State is 7-point favorites. I'm taking San Diego State there. I don't like UAB.
Yeah, I don't really like UAB either, but I have a feeling it's going to be a close game because San Diego State is maybe thinking it's a little easier than it since they made it far last year, all the way to the title game. And a lot of times what happens is the next year, you get upset early in the tourney. So I'm going to say UAB keeps it close, but I think San Diego State will win.
Alrighty. The following game, Marquette 14.5-point favorites over Western Kentucky. I think Tyler Kolek is going to play. Apparently he's pain-free. That's their star guard, going to be an NBA draft pick this upcoming draft. Marquette is 14.5-point favorites, though. I'm taking Western Kentucky. Marquette struggled in the tournament last year with Tyler Kolek potentially being rusty. I think taking the points here with Western Kentucky is very viable.
Yeah, I agree. 14.5 is a lot. So, yeah, I'll just take the points there.
UConn is 26.5-point favorites over Stetson.
Yeah. That is a ton of points, but yeah.
I'll say this. For the reasons you put forward for San Diego State, and also like Connecticut kind of struggled a little bit in the first round, at least in the first half last year against Iona before pulling away in the second half, I'd actually probably take the points here. I think Connecticut wins by like 22, 23, somewhere in that range. I'm taking Stetson.
I'm going to say Connecticut wins by 40.
40.
Yeah.
I'm going to be watching back these segments during Thursday and Friday just because these predictions are going to be fun to look back on. New Mexico is 2.5-point favorites despite being the 11 seed over 6 seed Clemson.
Yeah, New Mexico's playing well right now. I actually like this matchup for them too. So I'm going to take New Mexico.
I'm also taking New Mexico there. I have them making a little bit of a run. Although, like 10 years ago as a 3 seed, I had them making the Final Four and they lost in round 1. So, I still remember that, but we're going to try again with them.
Dang you, 10 years ago.
Auburn versus Yale. Auburn is 13-point favorites. I like Auburn a lot in this tourney. But Yale, Ivy League teams tend to do well. Yale has some impressive players. I know they barely beat Brown. But I'm actually just going to take the points with that.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the points there. Auburn gets kind of, I don't know what the right word is. They suck on offense sometimes and can't score for long periods of time. And so I could definitely see this being more of a grinded out defensive game for them and thus keeping it kind of close.
Next game is Gabe's Nebraska Cornhuskers. Basically a pick 'em. They're 1-point favorites over Texas A&M. I like Nebraska in this game, but I know you're thinking differently.
Yeah, I just like Wade Taylor and Radford. I just think in the tourney, when you have two good guards like that can both score, they're both good defenders, and overall, Texas A&M's a really good defensive team. Nebraska, I know I watched them a little bit in the Big 10 tourney, was impressed with them, but I think this is a really bad matchup for them, and I think Texas A&M can make a pretty big run in this tournament. So I'm going to take them.
Alrighty. Duke, Vermont. I'm taking Vermont. Duke's 12-point favorites. I think this will be a close game. I think Duke wins, but I think Vermont keeps it within single digits. What do you think?
Man, how is Duke not better? They're so frustrated.
I heard somebody sum it up pretty well. Just they're soft.
Yeah.
They're soft. I mean, like Proctor didn't have the leap people thought. Filipowski can be kind of inconsistent. I'm not in love with the depth they have in the front court. They're okay, but it's tough when you don't have like that star caliber guard, and people thought Proctor was going to be that, and he's not.
I mean, still have Roach.
Yeah, but like you just talked about Wade Taylor. Like I'd rather have Wade Taylor. I'd rather have a number of guards than Roach. Roach has experience, but yeah. So I think it'll be a single digit game.
Yeah, is Caleb Foster's out for the year, right?
I don't remember.
They got. I mean, McCain shot the ball well this year.
Yeah, he's a shooter though. He's not somebody you put the ball in his hands like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Mark Mitchell's a good glue guy. I get frustrated with them, but I'm with you. Screw Duke. Let's go Vermont. I don't know.
Alrighty, next game. Purdue is 26-point favorites over 16 seed Grambling. We're taking the points here with the 16 seed against Purdue, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Next game, we got Alabama versus Charleston. Alabama 9.5-point favorites. Alabama just hasn't played too well over the last 10 games or so. Their offense can be very electric. Their defense is non-existent. I think Charleston will be able to score on them. I don't think they'll slow down Alabama, but I think they'll be able to score enough to keep it close and potentially pull off an upset. So I'm taking Charleston here as 9.5-point dogs.
Yeah, I was tempted to take Charleston just winning outright in my bracket, but I'm going to say they keep it close.
Alrighty.
Well,
we got Houston, 1 seed, 24-point favorites over 16 seeded Longwood. I guess I'll take Houston in the points since I have them as my champion. I don't really know what to do with some of these 1 seed games.
Yeah, Houston has blown out a lot of teams this year, but they've gotten blown out a couple times in some weird spots. But I think they're just too good for this game. I think they might hit some struggles in some of their matchups in their region later on, but this one I think they take care of business pretty easily, so I'll take Houston as well.
Alrighty, 3 more games. Wisconsin, James Madison. Wisconsin 5.5-point favorites. There, in my opinion, there's no way this game isn't closer than 5.5. So I'm taking the points.
Yeah,
Here's what I'll say about Wisconsin, Eric. They could go on a run on the back of AJ Storr, but also he's the type of player that can completely shoot him out of a game. Like, he does not pass and take some questionable shots. He's very gifted as a scorer, but their tournament is going to go, in my opinion, how he goes. But James Madison is good, so they should have been 11.
I have a feeling this will be a good AJ Storr game, so I'm going to say Wisconsin covers.
Alrighty. TCU, even though they're the 9 seed, is 4-point favorites over Utah State. Utah State burned me last year, so I'll take TCU as the 4-point favorite.
Well, I like Utah State to win this game outright, so I'm going to take Utah State.
Alrighty. And then final game, Grand Canyon over St. Mary's. I'm taking Grand Canyon. As I said, tying Grant Foster is a fun player to watch. I actually have Grand Canyon outright winning this game. St. Mary's just always seems to disappoint. They always seem to be 5 seeds. This team, you can make an argument, they're a better team than they've had the past couple of years. But I like Grand Canyon because they play fast pace and they look like a Power 5 program in terms of size and athleticism. And I think that plus having a star makes them a good candidate to upset a St. Mary's team that isn't the most athletic team. So I like Grand Canyon in this game.
For all the reasons you just said, I like St. Mary's. I think I'm just going to go the opposite. Sometimes I don't trust upsets when everyone is calling it. So I'm just going to say St. Mary's.
That's how I feel about McNeese over Gonzaga all of a sudden. So
the WCC has been very good last couple of years. No one really talks about that, but they always give you crap, right, Tori? Your team plays in a weak conference, but it's been very good last few years, and at least at the top. And St. Mary's quietly just had a phenomenal year, and they beat Gonzaga in the title game. So I think St. Mary's is finally ready to at least not disappoint you in round one, Tori.
Yeah, we'll see.
But it is a tough matchup. That's a tough game.
We'll see. It's going to be fun.
I can't wait for that game, man. It's going to be awesome.
I can't wait for just tomorrow and Friday, and then our next postgame show is after Friday's slate of games, so that's going to be fun. Anyway, you can get in on these spreads with BetUS. A quick word from them.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Okay. I'm going to leave Eric solo. I think I might have had a hot mic there for a second. Oh, well. Shout out to BetUS. Appreciate them. I'll be back. Eric's going to talk about just whatever other players you want to talk about, Eric, and then I'll come back if I have any thoughts, and we can talk about it. And then we'll do Tankathon, and then maybe talk about a couple of prospects, and that'll be today's stream.
Finish my bracket before coming in here.
Muted. You're good now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What's up, everyone? Hi, Jason. So just finished my bracket before coming in here tonight. Kind of closed my eyes and picked mostly by seeding Iowa State, North Carolina, Houston, and Purdue for Final Four. North Carolina winning it all. So 3 1s and a 2. Way to be bold, Jason. No, just kidding. I could see this being the year that chalk holds up, but I could also see this being like last year where it's just complete chaos. Shout out to Kyle Wilson earlier, $5 donation, said, I bet you that 5 years from now, if this rebuild fails, you'll have Blazer fans still defending Chauncey with the Stotts defense of his roster sucks. Yeah, either that or it was all Olshay's fault. What was Chauncey and Cronin supposed to do? Yeah. What did you guys think of the game tonight? What stood out to you? Did you guys have a chance to see that Harden defensive play on Kawhi Leonard? It's hilarious. I know Garben and my mom were at the game tonight where the boo's pretty loud for Chauncey. Thing is, Chauncey's not going to get fired. He's definitely going to be back next year, I think. So, and he'll have Mikal Bridges on his roster to coach. How far do I have do I see the Lady Beavers going in the tournament? I actually, man. Let me just bring up that bracket real quick. Hold on. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. They're hosting a regional, so they should be able to win their regional. So they play the 14 seed. Why can I not find this region? There it is. They play Eastern Washington, should win that game. And then they play the winner of Nebraska and Texas A&M at home in Corvallis. So that should be also, I don't think they should have trouble with that one either. It's kind of a tough game, but shouldn't be bad. if they get out of their region, Notre Dame they're really good. But overall, having South Carolina in your region sucks. So kind of screwed there. But I mean, Notre Dame, if you get by them, I don't think they're getting by South Carolina. So at best, Elite Eight, but they should make the Sweet 16, I think. Garbin says, did I see what LeBron said about the Holiday trade, the Drew Holiday trade? Yeah, he got traded for a bag of potato chips or something like that, paraphrasing. Yeah, it's funny to see a player's perspective, but obviously LeBron wasn't following it that closely. He just saw Boston get Drew Holiday for a couple injured players and a couple picks, and he probably got jealous that the Lakers didn't get in on that. They probably should have. In-Mount says, what percent would you give that Mikal Bridges is on the team next year? Percentages are always tough. I mean, this is going to seem like I'm making it seem unlikely, but I think this number is pretty high when we're talking in March about a player being traded for. That's a player like Mikal Bridges. So I'm going to say like 40%. I don't think there's any other player that they're really going to target as much as they will with Mikal. And they have the contracts match up pretty well. He makes almost the exact amount as Malcolm does, and they have a lot of other picks and stuff. But yeah, maybe it's closer to 33%, a third. Yeah, but I really think it's happening. But a lot can change between right now and the offseason still has a ways to go. Yeah, it's all right. We don't have our names on screen, so it's cool if you don't spell it right. I don't really get mad about that kind of stuff, so call me whatever you want. Sean asked, what are your expectations for Scoot next season stat-wise? See, I was always going into the season, go back and take a look at previous before the season streams. I didn't think Scoot should focus too much on scoring this season, so I didn't think his average is going to be super high. It's actually a little higher than I thought it would be because I didn't think he would get this volume of shots. But I'd like to see him, now that we know he can score a little bit, I'd like him to be in that 15 point per game range. But the real thing is I'd like him to be in like an 8 assist or so range. And obviously if Simons is still on the team, he's got to share responsibilities handling the ball with him. But yeah, I think even in kind of half duty or maybe a little more than half duty handling the ball, he should be able to get to 8 pretty easily if he's really focused on that. And then maybe just cut down on the turnovers a little bit, just be more consistent with how he takes care of the ball and stuff like that. And then defensively, he's going to have to just completely revamp how he plays defense because it's pretty bad right now. MGJJ123 says, how much better do you think the Blazers would be with Miles Bridges? Do you mean Mikal Bridges? Or are you really asking me about Miles Bridges? Because I don't think there's any chance they touch Miles Bridges. No matter how good he is. I don't think he'd be on the team. I don't think they want that PR hit right now. Well, they did sign Terrence Davis to the remix earlier this season, so maybe they don't care as much as I think they do. But I would be shocked if Miles Bridges was a Blazer. But maybe you just meant McHale. Get Miles Bridges and Terrence Shannon. Yeah, let's not. Okay, says yes, McHale. So this is a tough question. If the Blazers had McHale, assuming they gave up like both first and Brogdon, I think that's probably on the low end. So I think with McHale, they're at least in the play-in, I think. I think they could challenge for like the 5th or 6th seed. But I don't think they're ever a contender unless Scoot or Sharp becomes a star like in the next couple of years, which I guess is possible. But I think getting McHale with Sharp still on the roster kind of stunts him a little bit because it's kind of the role Sharp would need if we keep Scoot and Anthony. So I don't know. But if Sharp took a big jump, I think it could possibly be like a fringe contender. You also have to make a few good moves to solidify your bench and stuff like that. But I think they're really good, just not. I think it kind of limits their ceiling if you do a trade like that, which is why I don't want to do that. Interesting thing would be, and we talked about this before, do you trade one of your guards if it means you don't have to give up any picks for McHale, or would you rather just trade a bunch of picks along with Malcolm to get it done? Like, how many people would trade Scoot and Matisse Thybulle straight up for McHale if we got to keep our picks this year? I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just asking how many of you would do that if you're that low on Scoot or whatever. Sean says, I was disappointed with Reed Shepherd during the Kentucky loss in their conference tournament. He kept deferring instead of shooting open looks. Yeah, I was disappointed in Kentucky as a whole in their loss. Hope I have them going a lot further in the. I have them going pretty far in the tournament. So yeah, I hope that's not the case when the lights come on. Sleep says that's stupid. Are you talking about giving up Scoot for McHale? Again, I'm not trading for McHale if it was up to me, but I'm saying I think that's the kind of move the Blazers are looking to do when they say we're going after a player, not picks or rebuild or interested in a step back. And I think the way he played this year, or not necessarily his fault, McHale's fault, but the Nets in general, I think realized that I think they had a lot higher hopes than they ended up being this year. So, yeah. Who's my sleeper big man in round 2 of this draft? Well, if Deron Holmes falls to round 2, I love Deron Holmes. If Ivisic falls to the second round, I also like him. it's tough to answer that question when there's not a lot of consensus on whether these guys are actual first or second round picks yet. So, yeah. Let me see if this guy is so tough for me because if he was healthy, I'd have a first round grade on him. I'd still maybe take a chance on him. I don't know if I'd draft him, but definitely as a two-way undrafted guy, I would take a flyer on him, and that's Nafali Dante. I love that guy's game. I've loved him for several years now. When I've seen him play, obviously he hasn't played enough, and the injuries are enough to scare a lot of teams off long term. That guy can play when he's healthy, dude. Like, he's really freaking good. Nafali Dante is he's on the Ducks, and I'm a Beaver, so I don't. Yeah. But yeah, there was a play like 2 years ago where he got a steal and took off from like way far away from the hoop and dunked it and just looked super athletic. And I didn't think he was that athletic. And obviously the injuries have zapped a little bit of that, but he's looked pretty athletic when he's on the court. Dante just can't shoot like at all. I mean, yeah, he can't shoot away from the basket, but have you seen what he's done like the last 5 games or something? I think he's shooting like almost 80% from the field. Like, the dude didn't miss in the championship game. I think it was 12 for 12. But yeah, I mean, I get he's not a modern center in terms of being able to stretch the floor. I'd be interested to see what we'll look up what his free throw percentage is. Yeah, free throw is only 60%.
Dante reminds me of Yi Missy. Is that how you say his name? Yi Missy?
I think it's Yi. Yeah.
Yi. He reminds me of Yi Missy if he was, 4 years older and injury prone.
Yeah.
Like, just physical beast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not going to shoot jumpers or anything, but just dominant around the rim.
I was asked about a second round big man, or like I said, if he went undrafted, I would definitely scoop him up on a two-way if I was a team. But yeah,
he's just too injury prone to draft.
You're right. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, like if he had upside, maybe you take the gamble, but for like a safe role player, yeah, he'll probably get an end of the roster type of contract, or at least a two-way, probably more of a two-way actually, but I could see him sticking around for a little bit if he's able to remain healthy. I could see him even cracking a main roster. So
yeah.
Earl says Hupinelec didn't even have a Visage on his board. I watched his new big board.
Yeah,
I agree with a lot of it.
I wonder if that would surprise me, by the way.
That what surprised you?
That does not surprise me. You
What
guys
was
seem very aligned in some of your views on players, but yeah, I think a lot of people have been questioning him based on just not playing a ton outside of a few games. But yeah, I've liked what I've seen when he's actually played.
Yeah, there becomes a production element that you want to see in order to bump him up into like the top 20. Like Keyshawn George, I love his upside, Eric. But he has questions like athleticism plus strength, right? So like, yes, he's 6'8", but does he play 6'8"? Can he guard small forwards? he has a lot of time to add strength and figure things out. But like, if he's a big 2 guard, right? Because he can handle, he can shoot. If he's a big 2 guard, is him being 6'8" actually like that noticeable? You know what I mean? Like, there's guys that play bigger than their listed size. There's guys that maybe play a little smaller. He's not somebody super physical. So, and just the way he disappeared in a lot of games, like, I would love to take him 21, 22, 23, that range, but top 20, it's tough for me for a guy like that simply because he didn't produce enough this year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I also look at it, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but, he was playing with some high-volume scorers, and I know they got hurt at different points of the year, but that Miami team, I mean, he wasn't that highly thought of going into the year in terms of like being a one and done guy. So I think when you start to show stuff that you weren't doing, combined with how old is he? When's his birthday? I'm gonna look up his birthday. December 12th. Wait, is that right?
What?
2003? He's 20? Almost.
Yeah, I guess so.
21 this year? Oh, man. Yeah, I was thinking he was 19. That kind of sucks.
Interesting. Yeah. So he's like borderline top 20 for me. He's in the Furphy, Tyler Smith, like, that range. I bumped him up to, like, I forget how high I had him. Close to late lottery because I think his upside is tantalizing. But he's in the same tier with the other, like, high upside players that haven't produced much. So Avicic, Chomchi. He's along with those guys for me. Did you mute yourself? Oh, you're talking. Okay. Let's just do a tankathon. Will we see Gonzaga versus Kansas? Very unlikely, because I think there is a decent chance that McNeese can upset Gonzaga, and Kansas doesn't have McCullough. Samford, I think, is going to win that game. We'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, McCullough being out is killer for Kansas.
Especially playing in altitude, Eric, against a team that presses a lot and plays 10 deep without McCullough.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're small, so they have an advantage with Dickinson. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of the dynamic with ED versus FDU last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's going to be an interesting clash of styles, and that's what makes some of these matchups fun. Is in the NBA, like, the same things work. And a lot of teams run the same stuff. In college basketball, teams can have more of an identity in terms of the way they play. And I think during March, that's what makes it more fun, is a lot of these smaller schools, like, were able to win their conference by doing something super specific or having a very specific style of play. Pressing works more. Zone defense works more. There's a bunch of different things that work better in college basketball, and that's why I enjoy watching it, especially this time of year. With that being said, it's time for... The Blazers are still 2 games back from Charlotte because, of course, Memphis unfortunately lost today, which means Golden State won. But Houston is trying to catch Golden State, Eric. They've won 6 in a row, 8 out of their last 10.
We all want that, right?
That'd be awesome. Is that an Eric ad? Chat, I don't know what Eric's going. Tori, don't let the audio go off premature for Take a Thought. I'm not. We're chilling.
I accidentally, so I went to check something. and I accidentally clicked my notification for this.
Oh, got you. Good old autoplay. Love it. So 5 and 13, I mean, we know the picture. This is basically what it's been for a while now, so we're just going to simulate it, scroll up, see what we get. At 14 is the Pelicans via the Lakers. At 13 is Portland via Golden State. 12 Chicago, 11 OKC via Houston, 10 Atlanta, 9 is Utah, 8 is San Antonio via Toronto, meaning that Brooklyn's pick to Houston moves up into the top 4, I believe. At 7 is Charlotte, meaning your Portland Trailblazers have also moved in the top 4, along with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Memphis, Brooklyn, and us.
Yup. I like that.
Memphis
is a lot of teams that had. There's 2 teams that had lower odds than us with us in that top 4.
Brooklyn is gonna rebuild with. Oh no, it's Houston. Never mind.
Yeah, it goes to Houston. Yeah, Houston.
No matter
Memphis,
what. Yeah, it's not even
3 Western Conference teams. At 6, get this, Eric, is Detroit. They finally got out of 5th. They're finally not 5th, so good for them. That means that San Antonio is also top 4, so that's 4 Western Conference teams, because you got Detroit at 6, and Washington is at 5.
Wow. This is fascinating.
Yep, so here we go. 4th pick goes to the San Antonio Spurs, which means Portland now has the best odds at the top pick. 3rd pick goes to the Houston Rockets via Brooklyn. The 2nd pick goes to the Portland Trailblazers. And the number 1 pick goes to Memphis. Although, Eric, there was a comment in chat earlier that said that, it's Taylor Packer says, I saw on the draft Reddit today that Sam Vecini said most front offices have Ricochet at number 1 over Sarr. That surprised me. So maybe us actually not getting number 1 and getting number 2 is a good thing.
Maybe, if you believe that.
Well, I think Ricochet would make a lot of sense in Memphis. And if there's any shred of truth to that, I could see Ricochet being a Memphis pick, Eric. They need shooting, especially at a forward spot. I mean, they do have Gigi Jackson now, but I could see them liking themselves some Ricochet.
Yeah.
And that way we don't take them. We sit there at 2 and we take Sarr. And we win. Let's go. Love to see it.
Wonder if would you, okay, this scenario, would you trade 2 and 13 for 1 to make sure?
I feel like honestly, if teams are that high on Ricochet, then I'm almost tempted to not do that, and then if they take Sarr number 1, then shop 2 and shop Ricochet.
Yeah, maybe.
And just call Memphis's bluff, or if they take Ricochet 1, we get Sarr and whatever we get at 13, but then, if they end up taking Sarr ultimately, then we...
Taylor says, I can't imagine the reaction on the draft stream if we got 1 and picked Ricochet over...
I wouldn't have a breakdown because that's the type of thing that people would hold
expect
me for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It
yeah.
flipped on the internet, all that stuff. Every time Chris Murray hits a 3, there's people talking about in our group chat, the Chris Murray haters are silent. He made a 3. Okay. Obviously, I'm one of them, apparently. I don't hate Chris Murray. I just hated the pick. Starting a rebuild. Would rather swing for upside, a Gigi Jackson type of prospect. Would still rather have Gigi Jackson. But, Leonard Miller was obviously the guy that I really wanted. So, hey, Chris Murray looked good today. I mean, I'm rooting for him. If this team is good, this YouTube channel benefits from it. So, obviously, I want the Blazers to be good. If that means Chris Murray is going to become a 25-point-per-game scorer, so be it. I'll say I was wrong, and he is the next Dame if he wants to become the next Dame, I guess, Eric.
I mean, that's a little unfair, but...
No, I'm saying if he becomes the next Dame, I'll give him his flowers.
He has to become the next Dame for you.
No, he doesn't have to, but if he does, I'm happy. I'm happy. I want him to. I want Chris Murray to be 6'8" Damian Lillard.
Did you see, or did you hear the Mikal question I got while you were gone?
No.
What percentage chance would you give Mikal for being a Blazer next year?
$11.5%.
11.5%.
Yeah.
That's slightly better than our number one pick odds right now.
Yeah, I don't know. That number is just speaking to me for some reason. So, I don't know. Like, anything higher than that is, I think, getting a little too crazy. We don't do things, which could be a good thing now. But basically, it's like, okay, now it's a good thing if we just embrace the rebuild and don't make win-now moves. Now we'll make a win-now move, right? That's kind of the feeling.
Yeah.
So, who knows? But, yeah. What did you say?
I initially said 40%, and then I realized that's pretty high.
Very high.
I changed it to 33%.
That's still too high.
33.333334.
So, a third.
Yeah.
That's still too high. I think. I mean, there's going to be other teams in the market for him, and ultimately, although I think they want to be good next year, I don't think they want to 1,000% short circuit the rebuild. Like, to the extent that it would take to get Mikal Bridges. Like, I think anything that they could justify, even if it's an overpayment, they would do. But ultimately, I think the Blazers would have to overpay too much for Mikal. Because how many teams would love a two-way guy that can do stuff off the dribble, that can be an elite lockdown guy, right? So I just think it'd be tough. What did chat say?
They said that was high for what I said.
Mikal would not come to the Blazers anyway. Good thing he doesn't have a choice because he's under contract, so it would be a trade. That's not what Sam Setter did, though. He did a lotto spin to get the order and did a mock based on feedback from teams, not his big board of choices, and PDX got one and took Ricochet on the mock. I don't get what you're saying. Okay, so he did a mock draft. Are you saying Taylor was wrong? Because Taylor saw on Reddit that Sam Vecini said most front offices have Ricochet at 1 over Sar.
If he's doing it based on feedback from teams,